today we are out here at the Botanic Gardens, and behind me is a demonstration area for different on-site septic waste systems. And joining me today is Dr. Sergio Abit, who is our OSU Extension specialist. And I know many of you might be wondering, why are we talking septic systems? But as we head into spring, there's a lot of planting that begins happening. And I wanted to make sure that we cover why it might be important to consider where our septic systems are before we start planting. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Abit.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So tell us a little bit about, let's start at the basics. What are the two most common systems that a lot of people may have in their backyards?
So two most common types of septic systems. Number one would be our conventional system, the pipe and gravel. It doesn't run on electricity, everything moves by gravity, but it relies on the soil in your backyard for treatment.
Okay.
So large open space, tempting to plant something in it because it's an open space, sunny space.
So you still have your septic tank, and then it flows into a drain field.
Into a drain field, so that's the conventional system.
Okay.
The second one is gaining in terms of popularity is the aerobic treatment systems. So this
Are those the sprinklers that we see?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And if these are systems that are installed in areas wherein you don't have like the ideal soils, so what you do is you have a system that effectively pre-treats the wastewater prior to applying it in your backyard.
Okay.
And that could be either applied subsurface via drip, or the more common one is again via spray irrigation. So again, sprayed in large open spaces that, you know, tempting to plant something.
Okay, you mentioned pre-treating. So is that septic tank different than your traditional one, or?
It is. So the conventional system, the septic system in there is just for temporary storage.
Okay.
So you separate the solids from the scum or the grease, and then you effluent that is treated in the field.
Okay.
But for the aerobic treatment systems, you have kind of like big tank with different chambers in it. The most important part of it is that you aerate the wastewater or the effluent with oxygen, atmospheric air, in order to improve or increase microbial activity. And when the microbes are active, what do they eat? They eat organic matter in your sewage, and that is how it's treated.
Okay, so is there electricity to that system too then?
Yes, so it runs electricity basically to power the pumps, to power the aerators, and of course to dispose of the wastewater in the backyard.
Okay, so ultimately we have two different systems that have different effluent water. First of all, before we go further, what is effluent water? If you could kind of tell us what that is.
So effluent water is the pre-treated water. So all kinds of water that comes from the house, it goes to the septic tank. It's pre-treated to some degree. It might look like it's clean water, but no, it's not. It has still a lot of pollutants in it, a lot of harmful chemicals, and of course microorganisms in it. That could be harmful if it gets into the environment or gets in contact with people.
Okay, well, I know a lot of times these are put out in open areas, obviously, so they've got a lot of soil and space for this drain field. So tell us a little bit about why is it important to kind of consider these with landscaping?
All right, as we mentioned earlier, it's always tempting to plant in these open spaces.
Right.
But take note that what is the purpose of the septic system? It's really to treat wastewater. And anything that you plant in there might get in the way of the septic system doing its function.
Okay.
So we got to choose the right plants. We got to put them in the right places. Because we don't want our plants to interfere with the function of the septic system itself.
Do you want plants? First of all, I mean, maybe it's better to not have any plants around them. Is that?
Well, we need plants.
Okay.
We need plants because for two reasons. One, we need the plant to cover the drain field where you spray the effluent or you have your lateral lines. Because that just to prevent erosion losses. You don't want that to happen in your property.
All right, because you want that soil. That soil is what's filtering it, right?
That's the soil is the star of the show here. That's the one that is purifying your water to some degree. Second reason why you need some vegetation in it, because they actually help in the disposal and the treatment of the water. So some of the water in the subsurface might be wicked up closer to the surface, and if it could be reached by the roots closer to the surface, then plants absorb them. And then, of course, you via transpiration that could be disposed back to the atmosphere. Okay,
so it sort of sounds like you're making a case for compost tea, but that's not the case, right? We don't want to plant vegetables around this at all.
No. Well, the best vegetation would be turf grass.
Okay.
Not the leafy vegetables, I know, because again, the water is not safe for to get in contact with this leafy vegetables,
right,
or any kind of vegetables, or even flowers that we pick and bring inside our house. So that could be a hazard. So Yeah, that's a source of water, but not the kind of water that we want to get in contact with anything that we ingest or eat.
Okay, and we hear a lot about putting grasses, but you want to make sure that it's turf grass, not natives, right? Because natives can have deep roots. So let's talk about the root systems. Like, how far away should we really keep any of our larger woody plants from our drain field?
There is a rule of thumb that if it's deeply rooted in its trees, that they can actually grow, the roots can grow laterally, that they should be at least 10 feet away from the boundary of where your lateral lines are.
Okay.
So away, because again, you don't want the roots to grow and go into your subsurface lateral lines, because they can grow into the pipes.
Right.
And when they grow into the pipe, they could mess up the flow of effluent in there, or they could even like break the pipe.
Right.
So now if you have broken pipe, that means what? A malfunctioning septic system requires a few $100s to fix. And of course, if it takes a week to fix, that means you cannot flush your toilet for a week.
All right, good to know.
Let's not do that.
We don't want to sacrifice all of that over a few plants.
No.
And the other thing too, I know, is like, what about these lines you've got material and equipment underneath your surface area, and so you might not be aware of it. What about like me mowing? Is my mower okay, or is there potentially any damage that we need to worry about with traffic going across these lateral lines?
Regular mowing is okay.
Okay.
Regular mowing is okay, but some of these, specifically those that have spray heads, you better know where those are, because you don't want your mower to mess up the spray heads.
Right.
And your septic system will malfunction right there. The other thing is you don't want to run anything that is very heavy in your backyard, and where you spray this stuff, right? Because compaction of the soil, it means what? It means a soil that does not allow infiltration of water.
Right.
So if you have ponded effluent on the surface, that's not very good, because that could run off to your neighbor or run up to your garden that has vegetables on it. So also you don't want, it's best to know where these lines are, where the spray heads are, because if you have to do some minimal earthworking, at least you want to avoid those areas, because you don't want to dig deep enough and cut some of the lines. Those drip lines could easily be cut by just, simple earthworking.
Okay, so a lot of talk about the drain field specifically. Any concern about roots around the septic system, and then like the septic tank itself, and then also what about lagoons?
Okay, first with roots around septic tanks. Roots are not a big problem in septic tanks, unless of course you have leaks in your septic tanks. And that could happen.
Roots seek water, right?
Yeah, so roots seek water. So if you have leaks in your septic tank, roots seek that, and then they'll enlarge that opening. It'll just mess up your tank even more.
Okay.
You also mentioned about lagoons.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a fan of lagoons. Okay. Right? If you are in the country, you don't have neighbors, you have at least 2.5 acres of property, then you can have lagoons. It's not what we hear about cesspits that it just goes straight to a lagoon. You still have a septic tank,
right,
and then just the partially treated effluent goes to the lagoon.
Okay.
There's rules that governs this. The designs has to be followed, but it for the most part it works if it's maintained correctly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us a completely different aspect on our landscape design as we head into spring. Thank you.
You are welcome.
We hope you enjoyed this video as part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on the OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.